She gave a cup of coffee to a stranger, and found herself at the center of a billionaire's secret test. Most people would have looked the other way. Not Charlotte Hayes. On a freezing night in Minneapolis, a diner waitress with nothing left to lose did the unthinkable. She showed kindness to someone the world had forgotten. But the woman she helped wasn't who she seemed. And what began as a simple act of compassion would spiral into a story of trust, second chances, and a decision that could change everything. Would you still be kind, if you knew nothing about the person in front of you? Would you open your heart, even if you had every reason not to? This is the story of what happens when two worlds collide, and the power of choosing grace over judgment. Don't blink. Because what happens next, no one saw coming. On a bitter December evening in Minneapolis, Charlotte Hayes, a 42-year-old woman with weathered eyes and the quiet strength of someone who's lost it all and kept going, wiped down the chipped counter of Penny's diner. The smell of burnt coffee lingered in the air, and the radio hummed with soft blues as freezing wind howled just beyond the frosted windows. Once, Charlotte had been the proud owner of her own cafe, a small, soulful place with vintage mugs, homemade pies, and jazz records spinning in the background. But that was before the economy crashed, before rent tripled, before everything she worked for slipped through her fingers. Now she served truckers and night shift nurses for tips that barely covered her heating bill. That night, as she glanced toward the front door, she saw her, a woman in ragged layers, clutching a threadbare tote, standing motionless outside. The woman looked lost. Cold. Forgotten. Most would have looked away. Charlotte didn't. She stepped outside into the wind and said 5 words that would change both their lives. Come in. Warm up with me. She had no idea who the woman was, or the world she came from. The bell above the diner door gave a half-hearted jingle as Charlotte stepped back inside, the wind following her like an unwanted guest. She turned to the woman who had just entered, soaking wet, face half hidden beneath a knit cap pulled too low, layers of coats clinging to her like armor. Charlotte didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She simply poured a cup of coffee and slid it across the counter. On the house, she said with a half-smile. The woman flinched at the kindness. Her hands, wrapped in fingerless gloves, trembled as she reached for the mug. I don't have any money, she whispered, her voice dry from the cold. Charlotte shrugged. Didn't ask if you did. For a few moments, they said nothing. The woman cupped the coffee like it was gold, breathing in the steam as though it were oxygen. Something in her eyes shifted, like the warmth melted more than just frost. That night, she didn't say much. She sat for nearly an hour, silent except for the soft clink of her spoon stirring sugar into the coffee. But as she left, she paused. My name's Evelyn, she said without turning around. Charlotte nodded. I'll see you again, Evelyn. She wasn't sure why she said that. But she meant it. Evelyn returned the next night. And the one after that. At first, it was just for coffee. Then it became soup. Then stories. They started small, weather, the neighborhood, bad customers. But over time, something deeper formed. Charlotte never pressed, but she noticed things. The way Evelyn scanned the room every time someone new entered. How she never used her last name. How she always chose the seat near the exit. You ever think about doing it again? Evelyn asked one night, stirring honey into her tea. Doing what? Opening your own place. Charlotte blinked. Sure. Every day. Then I look at my rent, my credit score, and this uniform, and I laugh myself back to reality. Evelyn tilted her head. What if it wasn't impossible? Charlotte chuckled. Then I'd ask what planet you're living on. But Evelyn just smiled, that same quiet smile she always wore when she seemed to be hiding something big. Something real. One evening, as snow piled up outside, Evelyn said something that froze Charlotte mid-step. I wasn't always like this, you know. Charlotte looked at her, waiting. Evelyn sipped her tea, eyes distant. I had everything. Houses. Cars. My name on skyscrapers. But I didn't know if anyone liked me. Or just my last name. Charlotte didn't blink. And now? Evelyn looked at her, raw and exposed. Now I know who sees me when I have nothing. That moment, the truth beneath her voice, the pain in her posture, shifted everything. Charlotte realized this wasn't just a stranger warming up with coffee. This was someone running from something deeper than winter. And Charlotte, she had just become the one person Evelyn trusted not to run away. It was a Tuesday night, slow, quiet, and blanketed in snowfall. Only 2 booths were occupied at Penny's diner, and Charlotte was restocking napkins behind the counter when the bell above the door chimed. At first, she didn't look up. But something changed in the room. She felt it before she saw it. Evelyn, always calm, always composed, went rigid. Her hand, halfway to her coffee mug, froze in midair. Charlotte glanced toward the door. A man had stepped inside, tall, immaculately dressed, his wool coat tailored to perfection. He looked entirely out of place in the worn vinyl and chrome of the diner. But Charlotte's eyes went back to Evelyn. Her expression had shifted. Panic. Not fear of the moment, but fear of history. Charlotte moved closer, voice low. You know him? Evelyn didn't look at her. Yeah. Too well. The man scanned the room, his eyes brushing past them, no recognition. Not yet. He slid into a booth, pulled out his phone, and ordered nothing. Evelyn gripped her cup tighter, like it anchored her to the present. I should go, she said, standing up abruptly. Charlotte touched her arm. Do you want me to walk you out? Evelyn hesitated. No. I'll be fine. But Charlotte saw it, the tremble in her shoulders, the way her eyes darted to the door. After Evelyn left, Charlotte paced behind the counter, watching the man. He never took his coat off. Just sat there, scrolling his phone, like he was waiting for something. Or someone. That night, Evelyn didn't return. Or the next. And Charlotte, she noticed. Every time the bell above the door rang, she looked up too fast. Every time someone in a coat passed by the window, her heart skipped. On the 3rd night, Charlotte closed early. Snow was falling in thick, heavy flakes. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She took a walk, down the path Evelyn usually took home, past the old laundromat and the boarded-up bookstore. And that's when she saw it. A scarf. Evelyn's scarf. Tangled around the base of a fire hydrant, soaked from the snow, the same scarf she'd worn every night. Charlotte picked it up, her breath catching in her throat. She didn't sleep that night. The next day, Evelyn still didn't show. Charlotte found herself scrolling news sites, searching hospital registries, even calling a local shelter to see if a woman matching Evelyn's description had checked in. Nothing. Until nearly a week later. The diner was almost empty when Charlotte looked up and saw her. Evelyn. But she wasn't the same. A cut above her eyebrow. Bruises along her jaw. Her hands trembled as she slid into her usual seat at the counter. Charlotte set a cup of coffee down in front of her, careful and slow. Want to talk about it? Evelyn's voice cracked. Not yet. Charlotte didn't push. Because whatever had happened, it had found Evelyn again. And this time, she wasn't just running. She was hiding for her life. The bruises on Evelyn's face weren't the kind you get from slipping on ice. They were deliberate. Sharp. Real. Charlotte didn't ask questions that night. She didn't need answers to know pain when it sat 2 feet in front of her. Instead, she kept Evelyn's coffee cup full and her presence quiet. The radio hummed low in the background, playing an old Sam Cooke song that felt more like a lullaby than a soundtrack. After nearly an hour of silence, Evelyn finally whispered, "You kept the scarf." Charlotte reached under the counter and pulled it out, folded neatly. "Figured you might come back." Evelyn took it gently, her fingers brushing Charlotte's. Most people would have tossed it. Charlotte offered a soft smile. "You're not most people." That was the first time Evelyn cried, not a sob, just one tear sliding silently down her cheek. She wiped it away fast, but Charlotte saw it. The next night, Evelyn was back. The bruises were still visible, but her posture had changed. She sat straighter, spoke more. That's when Charlotte asked, "Why'd you really come here, Evelyn? Not just this diner. This city." Evelyn looked down at her mug, then up at Charlotte. Her green eyes were clear now. Honest. "I was tired of being seen for my last name." Charlotte tilted her head. "What name is that?" Evelyn hesitated. "Sinclair." Charlotte blinked. "As in Sinclair Global?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "My father's legacy. His shadow." The truth settled between them like dust. Charlotte took a moment, processing it, not with awe, but understanding. "You came here, to disappear." Evelyn nodded. "To see if kindness still existed in the world. If people could care without knowing who I was. Without expecting something in return." Charlotte leaned against the counter. "And what did you find?" Evelyn's answer was soft. "You." For the first time in years, Charlotte felt something stir, something like purpose. Like possibility. That night, Evelyn left with a different energy. Her shoulders relaxed. Her gaze steady. And when she reached the door, she turned back. "You ever think about starting over?" she asked. Charlotte smiled, folding a dish towel. "All the time." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time someone helped you do it." Charlotte laughed softly. "I'm not one for charity." "It's not charity," Evelyn said. "It's belief." Charlotte didn't reply, but the words lingered in the air long after Evelyn walked into the snowy night. Later, as Charlotte stood alone wiping down the counter, she realized something had shifted inside her. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was about hope. And the crazy, terrifying idea that maybe, just maybe, she still had a future to fight for. The next morning, Charlotte arrived at Penny's diner early. She brewed the first pot of coffee with muscle memory but not her mind. Her thoughts were elsewhere, caught in the gravity of a single word Evelyn had said the night before: belief. By the time the evening crowd thinned out, she found herself glancing at the door every few minutes. And right on cue, Evelyn stepped in, face calmer, scarf wrapped neatly around her neck, and something different in her eyes. Resolve. Charlotte poured her a cup before she Saturday, "Your usual." Evelyn smiled. "You really are starting to know me." "I'm a fast learner," Charlotte replied, sliding the mug over. They talked lightly for a while, weather, news, a funny customer from earlier. Then Evelyn leaned forward, voice lower. "I want to show you something," she said. Charlotte raised an eyebrow. "Is this the part where you tell me you've been secretly working for the CIA?" Evelyn laughed, a sound that felt warmer than the coffee between them. "Not quite." She reached into her coat and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside, a folded document, keys, and an architectural drawing. Charlotte froze. "What's this?" Evelyn slid the paper toward her. "A property. It used to be a bakery. Has a full kitchen, good bones. Just needs love. And someone who knows how to run it." Charlotte stared down at the plans, heart thudding. "You're offering me a building," she said, disbelief heavy in her voice. "I'm offering you a chance," Evelyn corrected gently. "You told me once you dreamed of having your cafe back. I've seen what you can do with nothing. I want to see what you can do with support." Charlotte blinked hard. "I can't accept this. It's too much." "It's not a gift," Evelyn said quickly. "It's a partnership. You run it. You create it. You name it. I'll help with startup costs, and I step back. No strings." Charlotte swallowed hard, struggling to find air. "Why me?" Evelyn's voice softened. "Because you believed in me when I had nothing. Because you showed up. And because you reminded me that not everything in this world has to be a transaction. Charlotte sat back, her mind spiraling. She had spent years building walls to protect herself from disappointment. Now someone was handing her the tools to build a future. "I don't take handouts," she whispered. Evelyn smiled. "Then don't. Take a leap instead." Silence stretched between them. Outside, snow fell like confetti, soft and quiet. Inside, the diner's warmth felt different, charged with potential. Finally, Charlotte reached for the keys. She didn't say yes. But she didn't say no either. And sometimes, that's the only step that matters. 1 week later, Charlotte Hayes stood outside the corner property Evelyn had shown her. The building was old but dignified, red brick with tall windows, the kind that let sunlight pour in. A faded sign above the door still read, "Rose's Bakehouse." Charlotte wrapped her fingers around the key in her pocket, feeling its weight. Not just metal, but possibility. Inside, the air was cold, the smell of dust thick. But Charlotte didn't see the grime. She saw tables filled with people, coffee steaming, laughter rising like music. She saw what it could be. "You ready for this?" Evelyn's voice came from behind her. Charlotte turned. Evelyn stood in the doorway, casual in jeans and a wool coat, but something about her presence was grounding. Steady. Safe. "I don't know," Charlotte admitted. "But I'm going to try." The next few weeks were a blur of motion, inspections, permits, paint colors, contractors. Charlotte hadn't worked this hard in years, and somehow, she loved every second. She got up early, stayed late, ran spreadsheets at midnight. Evelyn showed up often, not to control anything, but to listen. To encourage. To cheer her on. "I haven't seen you like this," Evelyn said one evening as they stood in the half-lit cafe, surrounded by tools and paint cans. "Like what?" "Alive." Charlotte paused. She hadn't thought of it that way. But maybe Evelyn was right. For so long, Charlotte had lived in survival mode, just trying to stay afloat. But now, with every nail hammered, every recipe tested, she was building something. Not just a business, but a version of herself she thought had died when her first cafe closed. One night, after finishing a long day of sanding floors and assembling chairs, Charlotte turned to Evelyn. "Why me?" she asked again. "Why not fund someone with a resume? A business degree?" Evelyn didn't miss a beat. "Because you've already done the impossible. You kept your heart intact when the world tried to crush it. That's rarer than any MBA." Charlotte felt the words land deep in her chest. The night before the grand opening, they sat on the front steps, sipping hot cider from mismatched mugs. "You know," Charlotte said, "I thought starting over would feel scary. And it doesn't." "Oh, it does," she laughed. "But not in the way I expected. It's not fear of failing. It's fear of hoping. Of wanting it too much." Evelyn nodded. "You should want it too much." Charlotte glanced at her. "You'll be there tomorrow?" "I'll be in the front row," Evelyn said. "With an obnoxiously large coffee order, just to keep you humble." Charlotte chuckled. "Can't wait." And for the first time in years, as she locked up the front door of her brand new cafe, Charlotte felt something she hadn't felt since the day she lost everything: ready. Ready to begin again. Ready to believe. And maybe, ready to let someone in. Opening day at Hearth and Hayes Cafe started with frost on the windows and nervous energy in the air. Charlotte arrived before sunrise, wearing an apron that still smelled like fresh cotton and hope. The tables were set, the chalkboard menu freshly written, and the smell of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven drifted through the space like a warm invitation. She paused at the door, hands trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. She had done it. It hadn't been easy. There had been delays, broken pipes, late deliveries, and more than one night where she sat on the cafe floor questioning everything. But every time she wanted to give up, Evelyn had shown up, sometimes with solutions, sometimes just with coffee and silence. And now, Now the sign on the door read, "Open." The first customer through the door was Mike, a retired city bus driver who used to frequent Penny's diner. He grunted as he stepped in, eyeing the sleek new espresso machine. "You actually pulled it off," he muttered. Charlotte grinned. "Told you I would." He nodded once. "I'll take a dark roast and whatever that smell is." She handed him a mug and pointed toward the counter where a tray of scones waited. "Help yourself, Mike." Next came a group of teachers from the nearby elementary school, then a young couple who had walked by the construction site for months and wanted to see the magic. The cafe filled up slowly, then all at once. By noon, it was buzzing. People were talking, laughing, working on laptops, just like Charlotte had always imagined. And then she saw her. Evelyn, standing at the front, holding a bouquet of sunflowers and 2 travel mugs. She walked up to the counter and slid a cup toward Charlotte. "House blend?" Charlotte asked. "With a shot of vanilla," Evelyn confirmed. "Just how you like it." Charlotte chuckled. "You know me too well." Evelyn smiled. "That's the idea." They sat in the corner booth, Charlotte's favorite spot. From there, they could see the entire cafe, the mismatched chairs, the vintage light fixtures, the hand-drawn wall art by local artists. "This place," Evelyn said, "it feels like home." Charlotte nodded, her voice soft. That was the plan. There was a beat of quiet between them, not awkward, just full. "Thank you," Charlotte said finally. Evelyn tilted her head. "For what?" "For not giving up on me when I tried to give up on myself." Evelyn looked away for a second, then back. "You didn't need saving, Charlotte. You just needed someone to remind you that you were still worth believing in." Tears threatened behind Charlotte's eyes, but she blinked them away with a smile. "You sticking around?" she asked, half playful, half hopeful. Evelyn reached across the table, her fingers brushing Charlotte's. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I think I am." And just like that, the dream wasn't just real, it was shared. Because sometimes the end of one story is the beginning of something even better. Sometimes, all it takes is one small act of kindness to change not just someone else's life, but your own. Charlotte didn't have money. She didn't have power. But she had empathy, and she used it to offer something simple, a warm drink, a safe place, a quiet moment. She didn't know who Evelyn really was, and that didn't matter. What mattered was that she chose compassion over comfort. And that decision opened a door neither of them expected. In a world that often moves too fast and judges too quickly, this story reminds us that everyone's carrying something unseen, and that we each have the power to be the turning point in someone else's journey. Because kindness isn't weakness. It's strength, the kind that builds bridges, sparks healing, and sometimes, even creates second chances. You don't need $1 billion to change someone's life. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can offer is your time, your presence, or a cup of coffee and a listening ear. If you've been holding on to a dream, like Charlotte, don't let setbacks convince you it's too late. Your second chance might come from the most unexpected place, or person. Be kind without agenda. Be generous without keeping score. And most of all, stay open to the possibility that you're not done yet. Because whether you're 22 or 72, starting over is still starting forward. What would you do if a simple act of kindness changed your life? Let us know in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that could inspire your own journey. Kindness is powerful, let's share it with the world.